I also would like to thank the organizers of the conference for this timely event. In this paper, I will explore aspects of economy and society, and particularly international trade at the port of Galata during the occupation. The port of Istanbul, more largely, beyond Galata, in terms of tonnage of shipping, was one of the biggest ports of the Mediterranean and Europe in the late Ottoman period. In 1887, it was the largest port, second to London, and was ahead of Liverpool, Hong Kong, New York, and Marseille. Istanbul largely owed this position to the port of Galata, which specialized in transit and import trade. In other words, transit and import trade in Galata placed the city ahead of many other leading international ports around the world. So my question is, what happened to this most international trade, a trade with the most international, what happened to this most international space, and what happened to this trade with the most international character under the occupation? So I'm trying to focus on the international side of trade focused in Galata, and what happens to it under Allied occupation. And in order to do this, I will trace trade through companies located at the port of Galata, and I will explore commercial activities, the commercial activities in which these companies were engaged, and trace the companies they did business with in various countries. That is, companies located in Galata and the companies they did business with in various parts of the world. And this is something I have been focusing on as a work in progress. And so in this paper, I would like to present some preliminary remarks about this issue, the economic side of what was happening in Galata in the late Ottoman period and after. And it is also a paper drawing on from a larger project I'm doing on the Hans of Galata, commercial buildings of Galata. And for this examination and for the larger project, I'm using Ottoman State Archives, Greek communal registers and communal reports, and other types of archives locally, the private collection of Mr. Saadettin Fidan, certainly Anwar Oriental collections, among many other reports. Scholarship on the Allied occupation is, I think, overall limited. As Daniel nicely put a few seconds ago, I think, even though there is, much more knowledge about the occupation period, overall we have, relatively speaking, quite limited interest in Allied occupation. And a lot of interest has been on the politics under Allied occupation. And when we think of the economic situation, I think knowledge on the economic side, scholarship on the economic side is also quite limited. And when we think of the economy, particularly provisioning of the city and the aftermath of the economic Turkification policy, so these issues have largely been explored to the extent that Allied Istanbul has been studied. And when we think of international shipping, which would be a central point of my paper, when we think of international shipping in the Mediterranean, and when you look at studies done around the world for the Mediterranean at large, we see that there is actually little focus on the Allied occupation period. So, for example, certain studies focusing on the Mediterranean and the international sea networks, they just gloss over from the late Ottoman period to Republican Turkey, and they, in fact, they replicate what is mostly done in scholarship in Turkey. So I think there's much to be done on the economic side of the occupation period, and here I'm trying to focus on just one specific side of the economy. And we can, on that regard, we can posit two main areas of trade at the port of Galata: transit trade and import trade. And within this broad international sector, shipping and coal import dominated in the port. The port of Galata was the hub of shipping agencies which carried out the transit trade. They acted as representatives of major international shipping companies, while some of these agencies had their own ships. Foscolo Mango, for example, was one of the leading shipping agencies which worked out of Galata. The company was established in Istanbul by Anthony Mango and Ugo Foscolo. The company had branches in Odessa, Novorossiysk, Piraeus, and Istanbul. And generally, I mean, not necessarily for the, speaking for the occupation period. Foscolo Mango was a shipping agency, and just like most other shipping agencies, they were at the same time carriers of coal, which supplied the ships. In other words, shipping and the import of coal were two sectors which were aligned. And when we come to Allied Istanbul, there was an active environment with regard to shipping, coal import, and its corresponding sectors. During the occupation, Galata companies mostly traded or did business with France, the Netherlands, and Britain in Europe. During the occupation in 1919, we see Foscolo Mango as the agency of the Royal Dutch Steamship Company, which ran both cargo and passenger services. It had regular lines between the Netherlands and the Mediterranean and some of the Black Sea ports. There were many other similar agencies at the port of Galata, and they represented shipping companies located in Europe and acted as coal merchants. One of these was Theodor Repan, who was the agent for Constantinople Shipping and Fuel Company. Repan's company also acted as coal contractors to the British Admiralty and Army. The company was likewise a maritime agent for Danish, Scandinavian, French, and American companies. And when I refer to these companies as French or British, I mean, certainly I'm not really talking about the national orientation, but mentioning the countries in which they were located. Coal was imported primarily from Britain. It had two main destinations. It was either transported to Black Sea ports, or just as significantly, it was used in shipping for the vessels which used Galata as a transit port. The latter, that is, coal used in shipping, was particularly noteworthy as a major part of the chain in international trade, as imported coal was used for the provisioning of the ships which carried trade between various parts of the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. In other words, imported coal supplied the ships which stopped at the port of Istanbul, turning the city into a major transit center. In terms of trade, shipping companies were involved in two types of shipping. They were either involved in commercial shipping and or served as passenger ships. Doros brothers, for example, were the agents of the well-known Papayani line of Liverpool, and they were also coal merchants. These companies were all active in occupied Istanbul, along with many others. As the port of Galata specialized in transit trade, there were a series of companies which supplied ships other than the provisioning of coal. So they were known as ship chandlers or ship store merchants, and they provided various necessities for ships, such as oils, ropes, soaps, paint, canvas, and packing. Other than shipping and fuel, companies at the Galata port imported consumer products. Next to shipping and fuel, import of consumer products constituted the other main area of trade at the port of Galata. This trade included a wide range of consumer products, including items of clothing, paper, stationery, small machinery such as typewriters, sewing machines, coffee grinders, among many other items. One example for this type of trade is the trade carried out by a company which imported kitchen and bathroom ware from France, or another one trading items of clothing with France, and these were all in the occupation period. What changed in occupied Istanbul, mirroring the political developments, was the sidelining of Germany, while the US became increasingly visible in trade. The absence of Germany was a major change from both the war period and the previous decades. From the later part of the 19th century through the Great War, German companies were leading trade partners of companies situated at the port of Galata. This mirrored the intensification of relations between the Ottoman and German empires on the political level. Doros Brothers, for example, a company in Galata, which I have just shown, in the shipping business, they worked with companies in Britain during the occupation, but they did business with a big German trading firm, Zygmunt Rabinow and Sohn, in Hamburg in 1907, for example. So that's before the war. Or in 1912, the company of Hoffmann, located in Galata, did business with an international transport firm in Nuremberg and was involved in transport on the Danube line. Companies of the port adapted to these changes, primarily to the sidelining of Germany and other German allied countries. For example, the company of Hirschkowitz, which was a transport and trading company located in Galata, imported paper from a company in Vienna during the war. During the occupation, we see the same company trading with France. While German and Austrian companies lost their position as leading trade partners of the companies of the port, the US became increasingly visible. For example, coal and petroleum very important not only from Britain but also from the US. The company of Giraud, which was in the coal business, among other sectors, imported coal from the US next to Britain. The company of Theodoridi, which was located in both Galata and Romania, and which traded with Germany before the war, was one of the connections of the US at the port of Galata. Theodoridi was the director of the American Chamber of Commerce for the Levant in Romania. The company ran its own ships and acted as a shipping agent, and it also imported coal under the umbrella of the Anglo-Romanian Trading Company. Foscolo Mango, likewise, they were agents for Sprague & Son of Boston, which offered regular sailings from Boston to the Levant. Or in 1921, Hield and Rizzo, a company established in 1856, was the agent for the American Mediterranean Levant line. And likewise, in 1921, Arvaniti and Sons, they did business with the Standard Oil Company of New York. In conclusion, in Allied Istanbul, companies actively did business in international trade. Transit trade and import trade, which comprised the focus of the port of Galata, continued. What changed was the position of Germany as a leading trading partner, while the US became increasingly visible in shipping and the trade of fuel. Against the background of the sidelining of trade with companies situated in Germany and the increasing visibility of the US, the already existing multidirectionality and elasticity of the companies were instrumental, which put them through the Allied occupation. Companies at the port of Galata were relatively were already trading with a diverse range of companies and a number of sectors in the international space. The changing circumstances of the Allied occupation led them to concentrate on Western European and US companies rather than German ones, while they juggled between various sectors and took part in newly rising fuel sectors such as that of petroleum. Thank you.